Okay, so a couple other comments, and then I'm introducing a discussion with our panelists, which is going to be super. I'm showing on screen right now sort of what's happening with the hybrid logistics project, which, as you know, if you don't know, we have over 400 schools and districts that are EduJedi. We've been doing, I think we're at 20 meetings so far with them starting in the summer, influencing us and everything going on with hybrid logistics, talking to the coders, doing all kinds of work on this. It's been really a journey. We're not done with this journey. We're now inviting our initial betas to start telling us feature and function that they need, because, you know, it's a thing, but it's all about Uberizing live meetings with layered calendars. So if you know how like Calendly works, it basically allows you to offer your calendar for somebody else to pick a time. Well, that doesn't work for schools, because the teacher's like, I'm locked in the classroom for this hour and this hour and this hour. So the only time I want to set a block, but I want people to use only within that block for parents, right? Like a parent can set a meeting, but they're only shown this particular time. They can't just put it anywhere on my calendar. That'd be ridiculous. So that's what I mean by layered calendars. Also, when we're Uberizing meetings, if you're teaching 2 subjects, you want to be able to do your remediation in your Uberized meetings within the subject window, not just anywhere on your calendar. So that's what is so complicated about the AI going into this as a build. Okay, and these are some of the screenshots on that, and I'm prefacing them now. I know Suzanne, hi Suzanne, I know you're here, and I know Morri is back, so that we can dig into this a little bit more. This project, I'm just showing a couple of screenshots from it. It actually ends up in this sort of a model. Hybrid logistics is a social ecosystems conceptualization that would work with all your existing systems. So I'm just showing you the schema as a final wrap up, and then I want to go to my panel just so you understand that its focus, hybrid logistics in the future with hybrid logistics is all about live meeting, intersection, and a rework of space and time for virtual schools, for regular schools, for the hybrid high flex of both together model, just so you guys understand what that looks like. Okay, so Mountain House High School and Classical Academy are already doing something like this now. Most of it's manual. Let me get to my panel. Here we go. So I have Miss Morri Pace, who is coordinator of innovative learning, Powhatan County Public Schools, and also Suzanne Sloane, head of school from Virginia Virtual Academy. So good to have both of you. Morri, you spoke this morning. Suzanne, you're new on for this hour. Want to make sure I say hello and have you guys both unmute so we can start this conversation. Suzanne, I think it would be wise to start, since Morri's already had a chance to do this, it would be wise to start with you sort of giving us a little bit of background. What happened? What's happening? You know, kind of where are you coming from with Virginia Virtual?
Great, very good. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you and others who are in a like-minded space at this time. I think a few years ago, if we talked about virtual or digital, we might have had fewer experts in the room, but now post-pandemic, we're all experts, right? Whether you chose it or whether it was chosen for you. The Virginia Virtual Academy is, I have been the head of school since 2009, 2010, and it is a program under the umbrella of K-12. You may have heard of K-12. K-12 is also Stride now. And K-12 began in 2000, and I was employee number 37, which was kind of fun back in the day. So virtual was very new in the early 2000s. Some people were just getting out of the flip phone stage and the BlackBerry stage of their phones. Smartphones hadn't started, and we began as a K-2 company developing curriculum. We opened schools all across the country. I helped do that for several years, but we never had a school in Virginia because of the legislation. In 2009, a lot of work was pushed forward to say that there are students who learn really well online, and maybe we should have that kind of an opportunity as a choice in public school. And so in 2010, the governor signed it into law here in Virginia, and VAVA, as we call it, was born. We had 90 students, all enrolled in about 30 days. So it happened very, very quickly after the legislation passed. And now we have grown successfully every single year. We, because of the legislation and the way it passed in Virginia, what we do is partner with individual school divisions They enroll students from outside their boundaries. The state funding follows those students to that particular school division. And then at the Virginia Virtual Academy, I hire everyone from school psychologist to teacher to counselor to advisor to data operations, IT, everybody. And we then invoice the school division for that work. So just prior to the pandemic, we had about 2,000 students. That would be June of 2020. In August of 2020, we had 7,500 students. So we hired 85 teachers in about 30 days. So that was quite an undertaking to get everybody through. But it was exciting. We had been doing it for many years, and now we're working with several school divisions to help them get their online learning program up and running. Mm-hmm. Some lessons that we learned, pandemic lessons that we learned is you need to be very, very sure you are keeping in close contact with your families and with your students, because when you grow that quickly, it becomes a matter of making sure that everybody is logged in and able to follow through what you're doing, and then not in two schools at once. So some of the things that we had were students were enrolled with us, starting their classes, starting their lessons, and also were enrolled with their local school division. And so you can't have dual enrollment happening at the same time. So it was a lot of coordination between the school divisions to say, well, he's working with us. He's kind of logged into our system, but he's not in there every day. And we were saying the same thing. He's logged in with us. So we had to do a lot of report configuration by count day. I would say the other lesson that we learned is everyone needs to feel like they belong. You know, feeling like you're a part of something bigger, feeling like you're a part of a family, whether it's your staff members, whether it's your students and your families. There was a lot of isolation last year, a lot of people feeling alone, and we had to find some ways to make everybody feel like they belonged. Those are some of the biggest lessons that we learned, and we're still going. And I'd love to hear from others as they've gone through the last.
I want to first, because I'm sure Morri saw this as well with online kids. So here's a kid that you just mentioned. He was logged in over here, but logged in over there. This is what we're hearing as Learning Counsel, that kids want some physical. I want to be on campus, and then I want to be virtual. So it's the hybrid melding of the two that is starting to surge in the United States. Is they want humans, right? Which is why you have a focus on, we got to communicate, we got to, get up. And then Morri, you've probably seen the opposite side of that. Go ahead, Morri.
And you find that certain subjects lead better for certain students to be face-to-face. Reading is a big part of online. And so making sure that students are getting support and can read on the appropriate level of, the materials that they're going to be given, just kind of is one of those things that just starts that discussion. Math is another, or some of the sciences, they're just so nuanced that, even when I was working in an online school, we found that, the students really struggled with those classes. But, foreign languages or some of these other ones that are more auditory or, are more curriculum based than looking at the nuances, we really found that kids excelled, or there wasn't an offering. You can't afford, to have every world language available. And so they would have one that they really wanted. And this is such a great way for a student to be able to kind of customize that learning without, divisions paying for one teacher per kid. So I do love that we're able to customize this for students. Even right now, we've got kids in the elementary level. Being able to do that.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think you're leading really well there. I just want to compliment you before I say anything else. Everything that you said in that first half hour or so, it really says that you and, your district has really been thinking through and riding this bucking bronco, so to speak, and persisting. And I'm very proud of you for that. So I just want to say that first. Okay, so Suzanne, so that was an interesting story you told that I just sort of kicked off and then threw the ball over to Morri, but are you experiencing the same thing that we've been talking about here, the whole hybrid thing? Like people want that human intersection, but they also want it to be anytime, anywhere virtual at their own pace, kind of a wild thing. What's happening on your side?
Mm-hmm. So this is the first year, thank you for that question. This is the first year that we dabbled in what you're calling hybrid and what we were calling in-district, out-of-district, right? So the model for the last 11 years was we would partner with a particular county in Virginia, particular school division, and all of the students, almost all of them, would be out-of-district students, and they would be fully online, K through 12, right? What happened this past year is people said, wait a minute, I got some kids who want to be in the drama, want to be in the band, want to be playing on the high school football team, want to play tennis, want to do gymnastics, want to be in DECA club. And they want to come in for a little part of the day, but they want their content, their core content to be online. And so this is our very first year doing that. And we're partnered with 9 school divisions doing that hybrid model now. I will tell you, I was surprised. I thought it would be mostly high school. The examples I just gave are kind of clubs and sports and all of that. But we had a lot of littles that wanted to do the hybrid. They wanted to be in there for part of the day. They wanted to be in there for their specials, as we called it. They wanted to be in there for art, for PE, and for music. But they were taking their content with us. And so that has worked well, but it's a lot of communication between the two school divisions, making sure that the attendance is okay. They're coming into the building and doing that part of it. If it's content. High school football team or tennis is different, but if it's content, that they're doing that and then coordinating our systems to be able to take attendance for those pieces. They're taking their specials with the in-person class. We need to make sure that meshes with us. And not everybody uses the same system. Some use PowerSchool. It's probably the most common, but of the 14 divisions we're partnered with this year, 3 of them do not use PowerSchool. So I've had to bring on some operations folks to crunch numbers to be able to make them fit into the system so that the state gets reporting for everybody. I will tell you, we solved the problem of last year of the dual enrollment with students in both places by using a report that we pull now that will actually kick out errors. If the student shows up in more than one school division at any time, as soon as they log into our system, we have a student identifier, and we can now tell if it comes up as a duplicate, then we have to reach out to that school division, of which there are 132 school divisions in Virginia. And I think they know me by first name now. Oh, it's you from the Virginia Virtual Academy. And the confusion that we have sometimes, as you may know, there's a state-run program called Virtual Virginia, and that's not us. Virtual Virginia is the state-run program that this year has about 14,000 fully online students, and they are now K through 12. So we sort of compete in the same space. But people get it confused. They'll call and say, we're logged in and we can't see the teacher. And I'm, okay, what's your name? Logging in. Nope, you're not with us. You're with Virtual Virginia. So somehow they get, the two of them mixed confused. Up. So.
Well, yeah, like we're all confused. Yeah, this is an interesting moment. The two of you are coming at this from different perspectives. But I just think that those numbers of students that are going in both directions, it shows the shopping behavior of the market, right? That's what's happening out there. So the pandemic just pushed everyone online, because there were a lot of districts we talked to that were 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks just dark, right? Like, we're offline, we'll come back to you later, we'll let you know. And there was mad scrambles and to try to figure this out and be able to execute it all, right? In a lot of places. I mean, a lot. And the discovery journey of people online, I'm sure you can speak to this, Suzanne. People hitting your site just for discovery, like, what can they do for me, was probably nuclear, right, as the pandemic happened.
Absolutely. Yeah, exponential across there. We had people who we call maybe just a hit, right? So they popped on there just to kind of see what this thing is. Then we had people who are inquiries. So they filled out some paperwork a little bit, maybe gave their name, gave their email. Then you have applicants who went so far as gave their name, we contacted them, they started to apply and never materialized into becoming a student, all the way to the full-blown student. So just the massive amount of, like you call it, shopping.
It's like a funnel, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the thing that is going on right now is people want flexibility. And so you're offering a certain aspect of that. But Morri, the traditional environment offers, at least to the American mind, I think right now, that physicality. And if you have 2 kids or 3 kids, you know they're not all the same. So in every family, there's always the kid who's like, I don't want to go anywhere. I'm just going to stay in my room and play on the computer. And then there's other kids like social monster, right? Like has to be around other kids, right? Like we all know those. We all have them in our families. So we're now in the middle of realizing, hey, humanity is all different. They aren't going to all sit on the manufacturing line and do everything the same anymore, right? Like this is all Learning Council wanted to point out with a series of events this year, is that there's a systemic inequity, and it's us, right? It's our structure. We are structured to manufacture normal. That's what we do. We try to normalize you by your age and your grade along the manufacturing line, and that's just not working with people anymore. And Morri, you probably feel like you have to stretch, and you have been stretching in every direction. What are your thoughts going into how far this goes and what it means for your brand? Because now you probably have to think about that.
Well, it is one of those things, being a small rural division, that it's very easy for families now with all of the different opportunities to say, I'm going to go homeschool. Because now there's programs where they might not have to do them, or homeschool does have opportunities for you to have small groups that get together and study, or they've hired a tutor and 12 kids are now meeting. And so that's very similar to what you might have gotten in the classroom, except for you're choosing to spend your own money to do that rather than have it incorporated into your taxes. So I do think it's one of those things that we actually offer. Our homeschool students will come in and take upper level classes with us. We have a program where you can graduate high school and you will have the equivalent of going to community college. So there's benefits. We have internships. We have trade systems that you can come into. And so I think there's still things that larger having a building allows you to do. And what we're trying to figure out is where are those edges of flexibility. And they've gotten a little bit better, I think, with the looking at students instead of just moving a student on. I know we had some discussions of, is this the right placement for a student? Someone who didn't have a successful kindergarten year and they look like they're struggling in first grade. Well, what's the benefit of keeping them in first grade? So if the family and if the students and some of the other advocates think that, kindergarten is the right place for that student, then let's do it. I would 100% love if we didn't pay attention to grade and we didn't move children on systematically. And I hope that over time we do break that. Year-round schooling, I think, would help with that momentum, because people would see that a kid could just move and it's not like they're skipping a grade. They're just moving on, a quarter, maybe a little bit faster than another student. And there's nothing wrong with that. While as your math, you're not moving on a quarter faster. So you're staying with this. And so we see these kids getting mixed in and getting to not have to stay on the same tracks. And sometimes we track kids based on behavior and not on academics. And I think that's because if we move them too slow, you're going to be a behavior problem. Or too fast. So I think that's one of those things that we're seeing, that there's a lot more interventions that are going on to help, kids stay in that track. But at some point when you have so many people that you need an intervention, the question is the track right? And so I'm hoping we get to the point where we ask that question. But it's also, we've got to do a lot of slow restructuring to get there. Even when we take a half day and say it's going to be professional development, or we had our half virtual day, people are like, well, childcare, so there is some of this systematic stuff that we've offered that, there is an equity thing. If now you have to take care of your own child instead of just being able to put your child on the bus, and that's all that you have to do for them to get an education. So I think that's one of those things too, is I just want to make sure that we're allowing for all of these changes, but we are looking for just some of those family dynamics that don't end up leaving certain populations or groups behind, because we've now, said you can be anywhere, but there's really nowhere for that kid to be that's a safe place, that's also a learning environment.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I've heard this brought up in other places. And one of the things, I think I mentioned this when we were talking to Cisco, is why, like on your campus, you might just have one of those homeroom Starbucksy like snacky areas. Like people can just, that's the solution, right? Mm-hmm. It's a hoteling thing. Yeah. So the brand, you're feeling brand mutation already, right? Mm-hmm. But so are you, Suzanne. So your point on this brand mutation also from the other side.
So I want to go back to something Morri said, and I think we're talking about the same thing, this mastery-based approach to instruction, as opposed to you're in second grade, you're in fourth grade, you're 8, so you have to be in third grade, right? This whole mastery-based, and we started this years ago, and a lot of people were getting uncomfortable with it. Well, wait a minute, now you have a 6th grader who's taking high school level course content. That's okay. That person mastered the 5th grade content first, and so now she's on to 6th grade and she moved ahead. Could you do that in the traditional school? Never. What, you wouldn't bring a 12-year-old into the high school to be sitting with 17-year-olds, right? There'd be a social oddness that would happen there, and things.
Yeah, but
Suzanne, shouldn't be with 12th graders.
But Suzanne, I would beg to differ, because I remember stories told to me by Memphis Public, and they were using a math software, and they ungated all their 9th graders. This is almost all minority district. And those 9th graders were zooming through calculus by the end of the year. And it was like, now what do we do with them? So they had to go to dual enrollment. So there are some things in that, just so you know.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. In that space. But we loved that idea of being able to move folks along. So last year when we graduated, a third of our graduates were in 11th grade-wise. Right. And they graduated ahead because they had been moving and doing that mastery base. So that was awesome. When you speak of brand, people are now, the word digital, the word virtual, the word online, everybody's looking for kind of like, what is the piece that will fit with my family? Is this that I can travel to Peru and I can travel to California, and I can be in Florida, and I can be anywhere, and my child can be learning. That works really well for some people, and that's what they need. In our world, you have to live in Virginia because our program is funded by state taxes, right? So you can't have somebody who's living in Texas. But we have had so many people say, one of the reasons why I chose virtual this year for my students is because my company went online. During the pandemic, they now told me I can work from home. So mom's at home, grandma's at home, dad's at home, whoever's caring for the children are there. And now this is great because they can all learn together and they can hop in. And they said, also a couple of people, oh my gosh, I was watching my child learn last year because Zoom happened, right? The pandemic happened, and they started looking in and saying, I don't like that. I don't like how she taught math. I don't remember it that way. I want to do it this way. I want to help my child. And the history piece, I don't know if you're seeing this, Morri, as well. The history piece became a very, very big deal last year, with popping in and watching how some of the classroom instruction was going on with history. Some people really excited about it, and some people really mad about some of the things that were happening. And this is all in the same state, right? We all have the same curriculum. We're all supposed to be, teaching from the same page just about. And so there was just, this kind of interest in how history was being taught. We do surveys on the way in with our families. Why are you coming here? What led you to this? Pandemic was the big one, but no, more. Not just the pandemic. Like, tell me more about why you're coming here. And this content, watching the instruction, watching it happen live, had them deciding that, I kind of like this and I might want to be a part of it. We love that. If we're in PD today, I keep looking this way. My staff is here for face-to-face PD finally after 18 months. And people were saying, well, wait a minute, if a parent pops in and she's working from home too, right? And she pops into the classroom and you slide over. I love that. I think that's great. But
Yeah.
I think last year that was new for our traditional public school teachers to have mom, dad, grandma, somebody in the
In their
background
face.
kind of peeking in.
Yeah, in their face constantly. They're like, what? Like, what are you teaching my child right now? They're like live in your class. Oh, it's crazy. Well, I think there's a positive though, and I want to go to that. But I think Matt, do we want to unmute Matt, Doug? Because he was making a comment. I want to make sure he can pipe in with a comment, because then I'm going to go to discussing agency, student agency. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I was just commenting that a lot of the reasons that you've given, a lot of the advantages are things that as a homeschooling parent, they match really well. Our kids graduated early, had an associate's degree before they got their high school diploma. And we wanted to be able to travel when we wanted to and continue doing schooling from other places and non-traditional learning. So you're offering basically all of those same advantages.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Matt, there's other people that are like, they want the traditional because they have that social kid who he's dying to be with the same kids from the same neighborhood and all the time. It's a really interesting moment, this all the way around, because different people have their different needs. So thank you for that, Matt. And you have 8 kids, so you're an authority on this. This is like a huge number of kids. So Morri, I'm coming back to you. So one of the great gifts of all of this has been the realization that in the dynamics of COVID and everything, we had to make sure kids had got themselves up, got themselves online, and had some agency. And we're continuing with that because now they still have to do that even when they're live, right? And they're getting that live interaction, which they, a lot of them want. Like I said, the market's very divided on this point. We lost a lot of K2 kids. Every district during the pandemic lost K2 big time. That was the biggest loss point, and then the rest was high school. But the agency is a gift, because for the first time in 250 years, you have to be in charge to some degree of yourself now. It's not just get out of bed, stumble in, and when the bell rings, stumble forward to the next class, right? It's, you got to be in charge. So can you talk to me about some of what you're seeing for you?
Those kids that excel at agency, they're rocking it. And I, even as a former online teacher, those kids got it. Those kids, excel. You still do see, so I was doing a pilot again for some of our students that were out for more than 10 days because of COVID related. Some families, like each person kept getting sick. So that kid was out for like 36 days before they could come back in, and they never tested positive. It was just family member after family member. And so we offered it to just kind of pilot, as we said, like doing that buddy system, doing several different things to see which way worked the best, and also make the teacher feel comfortable with what the opportunities were. And we had some families that they were so excited to do it. Then the student excelled, the student came back ready to learn. They had all of their work done. They were emailing the teacher, asking questions. And we had other students that never logged on, but had even requested to, like, I had talked to the families directly to say, is this a pilot program that you would be interested in? And they were like, yes, very much so. They filled out the surveys on how they felt, but the student for that length of time just never even logged in to the classes that we were offering for the pilot. So I think it's going to be one of those things that there's that motivation, that has to either come from the student or the expectation that has to come from the family for the student to be able to do that. But I feel like that's in any situation, because again, I taught for online for 7 years, and kids are kids, and some of them either need or have all their lives and say, do this, and they do it. And some students will do it without anybody telling them because they think that's the right next step to do. And then some students need to be reminded that it's the next step. So I don't think that it's necessarily changed students yet. I could see, though, as if we moved, you would see more as a shift if students, again, being able to play sports, being in clubs at the high school level, being able to be involved in certain activities, or being able to go out and work. Those types of things, if employers were tied into, you can be an online student for these 3 classes because you're going to get early release to go work. But if that's not the case, then you've got to come back into the building, and the employer isn't involved with that. That becomes a whole different ballgame of accountability and agency for that student rather than, did I just want to do it? Because I've followed students around sometimes just to get that perspective of what is it like to be a student in the building and how much wasted time that there is. But there are social people like the wasted time. And that's just one of those things that, I don't think it changes whether you take them in or out of the building. There's just certain dynamics that students either have to work towards or overcome.
Yeah, well said. Well, thank you for that perspective. Suzanne, student agency, what were you seeing?
Here's an odd one. You ready for this?
Yeah.
I had to hire texters. Okay. They were contractors. We called them texters. Morri's nodding. This is what it was. So we've always had a contract that you sign when you come in, right? I will, as a student, I agree to, these are the things I'm going to do. And we have a learning coach is what we call it. And the learning coach is an adult who's in the home, who's responsible to make sure that he's not up there on Xbox all day. He was on the computer all day. Is he not doing his lessons? Yeah, he's on the computer, but he's not logged into the 6th grade classroom, kind of thing like that. What we started to do with this massive growth of students is we hired texters. Okay, class starts. Mrs. Reynolds has begun her 5th grade math, and here she goes. And she begins, and she's looking through, and there are 9 kids missing. So what she does, and we have it automated now, we actually have a bot who does this, has the list of who's supposed to be there, has the list of who hasn't shown up by minute 11. We give people 11 minutes, there's warm up and there's things that are happening. And it goes directly to a group of people who their sole job is to text Mrs. Reynolds class started.
Yeah.
Because they have it. We used to call and it would ring and ring and ring, right? Nobody picks up
answers their
landline
phone. Phone? What
so
phone?
texting. And what we do in the first couple of weeks is that practice of making sure that, your text works, that you're receiving responses from us. We can talk to you back and forth, texting them.
Awesome.
It was the weirdest thing to hire people. What do those people do for you? They text.
Yeah, I hate to tell you this, Suzanne, but you can buy mass text platforms that auto text. You would have to integrate it, but it can be done.
Yeah. Now, sometimes they ask questions. So we did want an interactive person who could say, yeah, who could say, yes, it's Mrs. Reynolds. It's 6th grade. It's math. Remember today it's Tuesday, Thursday that you have the class, so they would want to be back and forth. Oh, well, my internet's not working,
Yeah. I'm on the golf course. Text you later. Yeah. I understand. Interesting. Well, that's interesting. Well, as we've been talking, one of the things that we're going to be, and this is going to be a sneak peek, is that as we get through this next conversation, which we're going to really, as Learning Council, based on the research, devote a lot more attention on the basics going into the rest of the year, first half of 2022. I believe going into back end of 2022 into 2023, we're going to start be talking about sort of the golden age of administration, because everything that's on your plates as administrators now is there's way more buckets on your plate, right? Like you used to have simple buckets, right? And now you got 27 more buckets and it's still raining and, they're all filling up. And there's going to be some maneuvering, I would say, within the next year in both of your jobs and people like you all across America to refine and refine and refine, elevate these successful actions. You both talked about a ton, and sort of like maneuver into what I'm euphemistically calling the golden age of administration that is now tech. It has a tech backbone, right? So let's talk about that, like kind of where you see this going, because you're in the middle of it right now. So Morri, I'm coming back to you first.
Well, I'll just even say that luckily 2 years ago, our division didn't have as much technology when I first came, as far as like software and things like that. And so again, that interoperability has been key. I sit down now, every quarter with the director of technology and be like, what's working, what's not working, what are the summer projects, who needs to be trained in this. This is how you need to know my systems are impacted whenever you do that. And so that really, really helps with that. I have now, I'm also meeting quarterly with, I have an admin from each school so that they can, I can train them on all the different things, whether it's from the PD platform to put your own stuff in, to how can you pull reports to look at individual learning for students or for teachers or for data for this age group, so that you can have the data more readily available and can manipulate it yourself than necessarily needing to ask somebody to get it. And so we're just looking, or even how to send an update in the LMS, like some people may know and some people may not. And so just making sure there's just this ground level of administration tech that is there. And then looking at the division is that we've kind of, I think in the last year and a half, found out like, I don't get up from my desk and go help teachers as much because it's always about a system. I'm sitting here crunching numbers, or I'm uploading another spreadsheet, or I'm checking on this account, or I'm fixing, I'm on this help ticket with this person. And so how do we get where we can get back out to classrooms and get back integrated with our students and our staff more, so that they can feel supported instead of doing all this logistical stuff in the background. So now we're looking for other platforms that can help do that stuff, as you're saying, kind of make things that, work more fluid with less work as we bring on new software platforms and things like that.
Yeah. So you're groping for that. Well, Nashville mentioned just this last week that they're moving to a analytics type help desk ticket platform that can spot anomalies like 10 tickets on the same thing. Because you fix that one thing and there's no more tickets on that, because you can have ticket surges, right?
Right.
Which is a really interesting point. So you're groping in the right direction. So that's kind of, that's where your administration is going. It's leaning on a backbone of tech, and it wants to move more human. I think we're going to be in a few more years of hardcore heads down tech, right? Just getting stuff in place. But you're going through sort of starting to refine where the directions need to go. And that's what I'm going to call the golden age. So we're going to get there. So awesome comment. Okay, so Suzanne, I want you to comment. And then if you're still on, comment from your district too, and then we'll wrap this all up. So go ahead, Suzanne.
All right, am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, sorry. We are all doing PD at the same time in our new office. And it started at 3:15, and so I think I might be glitching a little bit. So give me the thumbs up if I'm good.
You're okay.
Thank
You're
you.
just glitching a little bit, but it's fun. So
it's fun. My IT guy just came in and told me to switch to a different cradle point. Good.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go in a different direction if I could, but it's on the same topic of talking about administrators and the golden age that you mentioned. I also think it's a time for salary reviews by people who have been around, maybe looking at this. I can tell you, when I interview teachers or principals who are going to be reporting directly to people on my staff, the first question I always ask them is, Virginia retirement, right? Because you're going to be working for a company. So I want to be sure that you're not at 23, 24 years. You're about to get to that retirement where you'd be able to collect, because that will stop because you're working for a company now. But the next question I always ask is, tell me a range of about what you think this job should pay. Not what are you making now, but what do you think this job should pay? And the advantage 6, 7, 8 years ago, even really 3 years ago, was you can work from home. This is going to be so great. So when they give me a number that I go, oh gosh, I'm never going to be able to meet that number, right? I could say, okay, can't meet that number. What I can give you is this: you can work from home 5 days a week. Well, now, hello, like everybody's working from home, right? So I think we're all going to have to, in the online world, in the industry of virtual learning, we're all going to have to look and say, I think it's time for a significant uptick in salary for instructors and for licensed principals, especially with the shortages that we're seeing now in education.
Well,
So that
everyone's
bodes
going to want to
well.
hear, everyone's going to want to hear this message. We're going to have to blare that out. Yeah.
Yeah. Higher pay for people who've been doing this for a while, right? That would be good.
Yeah, and these are the people, I mean, if we think about it, we also want to be documenting this journey because you're talking about people who know how to teach now becoming super tech teachers, right? So they've lived through a dynamic that we probably should be documenting a little bit because, 5 years from now, these newbies coming in, they're going to be like, what? They're like, lost on the context, right? Like we're living through a contextualized time right now that we need to make sure we make a part of our history about how, what everything that we did while we were living through all of this. So unfortunately, we lost Matt because he went into a louder area in his school district for right now. So I want to just wrap this up into, final positives that we want to say has happened or maybe, dreams for the future kind of a thing. So final positives. Morri.
I think the most positive thing is that nobody's settled on what the future looks like. And so it's just still wide open for lots of different lanes. And then maybe there's more lanes, then there's more choices. So, because I do think you're kind of talking about that there's no way that one division or one school can provide all of those lanes. And so how do we find these partnerships like Suzanne has and create more lanes for students? We got specifically, I think of, I'm the high school teacher, but I think about the high school and the secondary kids. There's so many opportunities of types of classes that they don't get to take because you have to fill enough seats to make the class. And so I just think that it opens up so many more avenues, and then so many employers would see that those skills are ready for kids, because we're saying that so many of our young people, as they go out, that they have these deficits and specific skills that are needed for specific jobs, and not as many people want to teach the skill once you get out there. So if you haven't had exposure, even in high school, you're kind of, shooting yourself in the foot. And so we need to help them by creating these more lanes and avenues and opening it up and making sure the state laws and then the businesses want to support that type of thing. And they come back and help us in the school systems as well.
Yeah. Awesome vision on that. You become a network node that is connected into all of that. Yeah, it's awesome. Okay. So final positives, Suzanne.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say the same thing about choices. I think that, the stigma of, that person is at home learning, right? Whether it's homeschool, whether it's online learning at home, whether it's that was kind of, if you're giving your elevator speech on, somebody says, tell me what you do, tell me what you would have this conversation where you'd have to kind of explain. Okay, so the children learn from home and, they kind of start from the beginning. Now it's just everybody understands that. But it's okay that people learn in different ways. And I think people are starting to understand that virtual works for a lot of people. And for some people, it just doesn't. And that's okay too. There are choices for people to have. When everything is the same and there are no choices for parents to be able to select from and kids to be able to select from, they tend to start dropping out. We have found some kids find their joy again by being able to school at home. And it's just a great choice to be able to have. And it's also a great choice for people to be able to work from home. Some people, same thing, like, you work from home. Now it's kind of common. So these choices are going to be out there. The positives are going to be that there are all different ways that you can continue to earn a living and you don't have to be in the building. They're all different ways. And it's okay now. It seems more accepted now.
Yeah, you don't have to go anywhere. Yeah, there's very low mileage on my car for the last 2 years. And there never really was, because I used to just fly out to come to the cities. And that's where I met you, Morri, the first time. I really was just flying around. I wasn't driving. This has been an awesome conversation. And you guys both just pointed out something that's so interesting to me. It's the paradox of, as we went to more technology, we created more choice, which makes us more human, right? We're able to adapt to the fact that all humans are different. That's a miracle, and it's such a positive. So I'm glad you both mentioned it. This has been a great panel discussion, and I'm so grateful to both of you. Morri, I hope I get to see you again someday when I come out there. And you too, Suzanne. When I come back out to that neck of the woods, I hope I get to see you and a lot more people. Matt, if he's still on, Pamela, if you're still on, everybody else is still on. I'm grateful to all of you for being with us. Let me just wrap this up. I'm going to do a little screen share. Here we go. I want to thank you guys again. And then also our sponsors, ClassLink, Scholastic, Cisco, Learning.com, Renaissance. We're going to see more from Scholastic tomorrow. But I want to thank all of those guys and then see you guys tomorrow. This is our event for tomorrow. We'll have Dr. Nicole NeVries and Dr. Sharon Shrewbridge on. First up for Virginia Beach. Chris McMurray is going to share all the new data from the EduJedi, which is amazing. It's really great stuff. Then we're going to do we're going to have a guest educator, and then we're going to wrap up again with a panel conversation. I think we might have one other person join. So here we go. See you tomorrow. Thanks everyone for joining us. And you're free to move about again. Thank you again. Bye, everyone.